let's spend a few moments thinking about the 5 principles of government. The writers of the Constitution were trying to strike a balance between a government strong enough to protect their rights, but not so strong that it would violate their rights. They had just recently experienced both extremes. The government of King George III was too strong. It had violated their rights over and over again. It was this very violation of their rights that led the 13 colonies to fight for their independence from Britain in the Revolutionary War. The first American government, established under the Articles of Confederation during the Revolutionary War, was so weak that it could not protect the rights of citizens of the new country. To achieve a balance between a government strong enough to protect their rights, but not so strong that it would violate their rights, the writers of the Constitution built a new government based on 5 principles. They are popular sovereignty, limited government, federalism, separation of powers, and finally, checks and balances. Let's take a look at each one. The first principle is called popular sovereignty. That just means the people rule. The first 3 words of the Constitution, we the people, express the principle of popular sovereignty. According to this principle, the people hold the final authority in government. When we studied the Declaration of Independence, we saw that one of the big ideas there was that the government gets its power from the people. The Constitution is a contract between the American people and their government. In the Constitution, the people give the government the powers it needs to achieve its goals. In a large society, not all citizens can take part directly in government. Instead, they exercise their ruling power indirectly by electing public officials to make laws and other decisions for them. This system is called a representative government. The people elect public officials by voting in free and frequent elections. The right to vote has been gradually expanded over time. When the Constitution was approved, only white men over the age of 21 who owned property could vote. Over the years, other Americans have won the right to vote. Today, all citizens over the age of 18 are eligible to vote regardless of gender, race, or religious affiliation. The second principle is limited government. According to this principle, the government has only the powers that the people grant it in the Constitution. The power of the government is limited by the Constitution. The government can do only those things stated in the Constitution. The most important limits on the government's power are set out in the Bill of Rights. It guarantees that the government may not take away the individual freedoms of the people. These liberties include freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and the freedom of religion, and many more. The third principle is federalism. The writers of the Constitution created a strong central government, yet they also wanted the states to retain much of their power. Like most Americans, they believed that state governments would best understand the special needs and concerns of their citizens. The principle of federalism divides power between the federal government and state governments. The federal government has the power to deal with national issues like maintaining a military, declaring war, setting a standards for weights and measures, and protecting copyrights and patents. The states have the power to meet local needs, like setting up schools, regulating state commerce, making regulations for marriage, and establishing and regulating corporations. Still other powers, sometimes called concurrent powers, are shared by the federal and state governments. These powers include the power to collect taxes, borrow money, and punish criminals. Federalism creates a working partnership between the national government and the state governments. However, when a dispute arises between them, there is no doubt where the final authority lies. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Only federal courts can settle the dispute. The fourth principle is the separation of powers. The writers of the Constitution wanted to keep one person or group from becoming too powerful. To do this, they divided the three basic powers of government, the power to make, enforce, and apply the law, among three branches or parts of the government. The legislative branch, or Congress, makes the laws. The executive branch, the President, executes or carries out the laws. The judicial branch, the Supreme Court, applies and explains the laws. The fifth principle is checks and balances. Sometimes two branches of government are required to cooperate to complete an action. This is the balance part of checks and balances. For example, Congress can pass a bill and it becomes a law when the President signs it. Or the President can make a treaty with a foreign government, but the treaty goes into effect only when the Senate approves the treaty. The President is the Commander-in-Chief of the armed forces, but only Congress has the power to declare war. These are examples of the way one branch balances another. Each branch can also check or undo an action of the other two branches. There are several examples of this. Congress has the power to pass bills or propose laws. The President can check Congress by vetoing or rejecting a bill. The Supreme Court has the power to rule whether a law is unconstitutional, that is, not permitted by the Constitution. The power to declare laws unconstitutional is one check the Supreme Court has on Congress and the President. Congress has the power to remove federal judges from office if they are found guilty of wrongdoing. Congress may also propose a constitutional amendment to overrule a judicial decision. Government can be complex, but the writers of the Constitution did their homework and created a government that's balanced, one that's strong but not too strong.